Good to have you with us on a Monday. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. We begin this hour with the final sprint to Election Day, which is now just 15 days away. Both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are kicking off the week with a battleground blitz following a weekend of campaigning in key swing states. Yesterday, VP Harris spent her 60th birthday in Georgia, where she attended a church service in Atlanta. The vice president spoke about the importance of faith and urged community members to vote for her. As for Mr. Trump, he spent the weekend in battleground Pennsylvania. On Sunday, the former president put on a McDonald's apron and served up some French fries at the fast food restaurant for pre-screened supporters. But it was his comments a day earlier that got more attention. During a rally, Mr. Trump attacked Harris using an obscene remark, which she later criticized in an interview with Reverend Al Sharpton on MSNBC.
We can't stand your ass, Vice President. The worst. You're the worst Vice President. Kamala, you're fired.
It demeans the office. And I have said, and I'm very clear about this, Donald Trump should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. He has not earned the right.
We've got a team standing by to talk all things election and so much more. We start things off with NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns and NBC News White House correspondent Ali Rafa. Good morning to both of you. Dasha, let's start with you. Another weekend of controversial remarks by former President Trump. Not only did we hear that profane personal attack on Harris, but Mr. Trump also made a few other questionable comments while in Pennsylvania. Tell us, what did he have to say?
Yeah, Joe, good morning. At that same rally in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the former president kicked off that rally with a 12-minute monologue about the famed hometown golfer Arnold Palmer. He talked about him and his history, and then that monologue took somewhat a bizarre turn, and this is morning television, so I will put it this way. He discussed the late Palmer's anatomy and reactions to Palmer in the locker room showers. He also spent the weekend making some retail stops, including at a McDonald's in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia, where he tried to push his unsupported claims that Vice President Kamala Harris never worked at McDonald's when she was in college, as she tells that story. And he, worked the fry cooker, he worked the drive-through, and this is all happening, Joe, by the way, in the critical state of Pennsylvania that could be the state to turn this election, Joe.
Yeah, that could be the one we're waiting for days later. So, Ali, let's bring you in here. We haven't talked much about religion on the campaign trail this year, but Vice President Harris spent this weekend at church in Georgia. Talk about her efforts to try and court religious voters.
Yeah, Joe, good morning. I was in Atlanta over the weekend as Harris was there on Saturday holding a rally. And then yesterday, as you mentioned, she attended these two church services that were attended mostly by Black voters who she encouraged to go and vote for her. And it's worth noting, too, that her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, also attended a church service, but that was in Michigan. And for Harris, this is a bit outside of the norm. We know that she is a practicing Baptist, but she doesn't really talk much about her religion. We know that she regularly consults her pastor, asks him for guidance. In one instance that she did that was after the president called her and told her that he was going to step out of the 2024 race and really pass the baton onto her. But we are seeing the Harris campaign use these church services, use this effort that they call Souls to the Polls to sort of indirectly respond to accusations by former President Trump that Harris doesn't care about certain religious groups. Remember, we heard him last week say that because she skipped the Al Smith dinner, which is a typical campaign stop for candidates, instead she pre-recorded a video and sent that into the event. He suggested that she didn't care about Catholics. And so we're seeing the Harris campaign use these services to sort of in an indirect way respond to former President Trump. And in one of those services over the weekend, she took a veiled swipe at him again, talking about him, but not by referencing his name, Joe.
Ali, let's look forward. We know that Harris is continuing her battleground tour today. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. That's the blue wall. She's going to be joined by former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney again. What can we expect there? I mean, how much realistically does her campaign think these Republican supporters give her a boost?
Yeah, the two of them campaigning together certainly is notable when you think of Cheney's background and really what she brings to this. Remember, at one point, she was the #3 House Republican. She's very conservative. But remember, she was also essentially ousted from her role because of her opposition to former President Trump. And she has now said that she is willing to do anything to prevent him from getting back into the White House because she, in her words, quote, wants to put country over party. We saw them campaigning together in Wisconsin last month. And today, they're going to be hitting those critical blue wall states. They're going to be going to the suburbs of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, trying to target those anti-Trump Republicans who may feel left behind by their party. And the gut check here, Joe, is that the Harris campaign doesn't expect like a mass wave of Republicans to come and vote for Harris. But because the race is so tight, especially in those key swing states, they think that even a small portion of those Republicans voting for Harris could really move the needle enough for a Harris victory.
And Dasha, for Mr. Trump, we know he's heading to another swing state, North Carolina. What's he expected to do in this visit to a state that could also be very important to his election chances?
Yeah, Joe, and it's a state, by the way, that Republicans have held since Obama last won it in 2008, and then it's been red really ever since. But this time around, it really is in play. So the former president is headed there today. He'll have 3 campaign stops across the state. He's going to start in Asheville, which, of course, was devastated by Hurricane Helene. He'll tour that damage and devastation there, Joe.
All right. Dasha and Allie kicking us off this hour. Thank you both. Let's bring in NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray for a closer look at a new national NBC poll asking voters which policies would make them more or less likely to support a candidate with just over 2 weeks until Election Day. Mark, good morning. So some of the most popular policies among the dozen tested in the poll were those aiming to address high costs, speaking to the importance of the economy in this election. Tell us more about what voters are looking for from the candidates when it comes to the economy.
Yeah, Joe, the most popular policies of the 12 that our poll ended up testing were expanding oil and domestic oil and gas, with 67% of voters saying that they're more likely to support a candidate who backs that. Next on the list was a child tax credit for newborns, giving up to $6,000. That's something that Vice President Kamala Harris has proposed on the campaign trail, with 64% of voters saying they're more likely to support a candidate who backs that. And Joe, it shouldn't be a surprise that the economic issues are the ones that are the most popular when more voters say that the economy is their top concern in this election.
And Mark, while certain economic policies could move voters toward a candidate, the survey also finds that election denialism can actually turn them off. Vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance recently said, quote, "No, not by the words I would use. Did Trump lose the 2020 election?" What did the people who responded to the poll have to say about this? Could this have an impact on the Trump campaign and on this election?
Yeah, Joe, this was the most unpopular issue that our poll ended up surveying of the 12 that were measured, with just 18% of registered voters saying that they're more likely to support a candidate who believes that Donald Trump won the 2020 election, and with 52% of voters saying they're less likely to support such a candidate. So absolute kryptonite on the campaign trail, Joe.
Mark, another huge issue, abortion. The poll found that voters far less likely to back candidates who support the Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe versus Wade. According to the poll, what's the split there, and how much could this move the needle for Vice President Harris? We know it's been a huge issue in the last 2 years in other elections.
Joe, it's a big motivating issue. When our poll ended up finding this was the second most unpopular issue in our poll for a candidate who who supports the Supreme Court overturning a Roe v. Wade. Just 30% of voters say that they are more likely to vote for such a candidate. And then again, 52% are saying they're less likely to vote for such a candidate.
All right, Mark, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Early voting continues to roll out across the country. Today, people can head to the polls in 8 more states, plus 2 additional municipalities in the battleground state of Michigan. Detroit was the state's first city to start early voting on Saturday. Today, voters in Canton Township, that's a Detroit suburb, and East Lansing, the home of Michigan State University, can also cast their ballots. It's the first presidential election where Michigan voters can vote early in person. NBC's Julia Jester will be spending a lot of time in Michigan between now and Election Day. She joins us from Detroit. Julia, so far we've seen record voter turnout in states like North Carolina and Georgia last week. How are things looking in Michigan? I understand there are some key deadlines today that people need to know about.
Well, good morning, Joe. Here in Michigan, early voting is a new offering for voters, so there's not much of a comparison point. But Detroit actually had nearly 2,000 voters come out on the weekend to cast their ballots in the first time early voting has been offered in the state. And as far as absentee ballot goes, statewide, around 1 million have already been returned. Now, we heard some voters over the weekend as to why they took advantage of this new opportunity to vote early here in Michigan. Take a listen.
Unfortunately, the United States does not have a day where we all just pause and vote and do our duty as citizens, and so I wanted to not have any conflict with my busy schedules.
I just graduated cosmetology school, so I am kind of busy with being a mom and getting into my regular life, and I just didn't want to forget because it's important this year.
Now, I spoke with the election director of Detroit, who said that answers like those are exactly why the city of Detroit decided to offer more days of early voting than is legally required. Now, in the midterms in 2022, voters approved a measure that would allow for early voting in the state, 9 days of it. So October 26th to November 3rd, it will be available statewide. Now, today, October 21st, you mentioned a few more townships are offering early voting. It's also a key day here in Michigan. It is the last day to register to vote online or by mail, and it is the day that the Secretary of State recommends the last day to mail in your absentee ballots to guarantee that it comes here by Election Day, Joe.
Kudos to you, Julia, for powering through the car alarm there. All right, let's talk about the results. We saw what's been dubbed the red mirage play out big time in 2020. So that's where the early results appear to show Mr. Trump taking the lead in several swing states. But once all the votes were counted, including those early votes that were cast, those states eventually turned blue. Remind us why this can happen and just what steps Michigan is taking to try and avoid any misleading early results this time.
Well, Joe, in 2020, because of the pandemic, you saw an unprecedented number of voters voting absentee. I was here in Michigan, and they were getting creative for in-person absentee voting, offering drive-through options to minimize human contact during the COVID pandemic. And again, in that midterm election in 2022, voters realized that they could perhaps help speed along the process of getting those absentee ballots processed to avoid what we saw in 2020 of a delay in reporting the results that really created those conspiracy theories about ballot dumps. So new in 2024, pre-processing is allowed, and that makes a huge difference. I was talking to a bunch of local clerks here in Michigan who say that they hope it's a game changer for them. It can allow election workers to come in perhaps on a weekend or during business hours to do those steps that are key, just time-consuming things when it comes to processing absentee ballots, opening the envelopes, removing the secrecy sleeves. All of those things that couldn't be done until Election Day before can now happen in advance, so we can get those results sooner on election night. So between in-person early voting, absentee pre-processing, and Election Day, there are different buckets to pull votes from, so it's not just a complete deluge right there at the 11th hour, Joe.
That is good to hear. Michigan is doing that. Of course, a reminder to our viewers, some states may do it differently, which means the results will come in at different rates in different places. Julia Jester, thanks so much for your reporting this morning. Appreciate it. As you just mentioned, now that we have early voting, some states are turning to early counting as well to avoid that election night chaos. But it's more the exception than the rule. NBC's Shaq Brewster has a look at the contrast when it comes to tallying those early votes between two battleground states, Michigan and neighboring Wisconsin.
They're two battleground states, Michigan and Wisconsin, whose late into the night vote counts 4 years ago descended into chaos, but only one has made major changes to help avoid this.
What we see here is essentially an increasing mob-like scene.
Protesters harassing poll workers in Detroit, scrambling to count the surge of absentee ballots.
My life was threatened. My staff's life was threatened.
Now, a new law in Michigan gives clerks a head start, allowing them to process absentee ballots well before Election Day.
I think it would show voters that the process is clean, that the process is open.
The changes will likely limit a so-called red mirage on election night. That's what happened in 2020, when many cities reported in-person voting results first, which tended to favor Republicans. But absentee ballots, which were more Democratic-leaning, took longer to count.
100% reporting didn't take place until Wednesday morning.
Trump's lead in Michigan vanished later that morning when Detroit's Wayne County reported nearly 150,000 votes. Predictable changes that were used to fuel false claims of illegal ballot dumps.
And then, boom, all of a sudden, I go from winning by a lot to losing.
With this new law, when will Detroit have its results posted?
We'll have our results posted by 11 o'clock news. 90 to 95% of our results will be posted by then.
In the week before Election Day, you'll actually see these envelopes opened and the ballots put into vote tabulators here in Michigan. While here in Wisconsin, you may see results come in later. That's because absentee ballots stored here cannot even be opened until Election Day.
Regardless of the efficiencies we make, just the sheer number makes us be one of the last people, if not always the last jurisdiction to report results.
In 2020, Milwaukee finished counting at 3:42 a.m., pushing Biden ahead in Wisconsin.
Do you have any projection for when Milwaukee will have its vote reported this year?
I don't. I think what we should expect, though, is not before midnight.
43 states allow clerks to process ballot envelopes before Election Day. But despite bipartisan efforts to change election laws, that doesn't include critical battlegrounds Pennsylvania and Wisconsin.
If the American public wants to see our results sooner, there has to be legislative change.
A change to speed up the count in the most competitive states. Shaquille Brewster, NBC News, Detroit.
In other news now, over the weekend, historic rains and flash flooding hit the Southwest. This morning, multiple deaths are being reported in New Mexico, with search and rescue efforts now underway after that record rainfall. NBC News correspondent George Solis has the latest.
Southeastern New Mexico reeling after historic and deadly flooding hit Saturday. Torrential rains slamming Roswell with incredible force. An all-time record of nearly 6 inches in just a few hours.
Dang, Roswell. I'm gonna get on the roof, I think.
Nearly knee-deep murky waters at this banquet hall, turning a celebration into an evacuation. Emergency calls revealing the unfolding chaos.
Just got a call about a couple of kids stuck on a roof and multiple houses over there with people stuck. They're up on their cabinets.
The New Mexico National Guard, alongside other agencies, rescuing even a dog stranded in floodwaters.
I am completely surrounded by water.
Watch this dramatic moment as Chaves County Sheriff Mike Harrington got on his car roof to survive the sudden floods as he warned others to get off the road.
That is the side of my truck, and there are multiple vehicles. Came into this not expecting that much water, and before I know it, I was swept off into this.
While water levels have started to recede in some parts, some areas remain dangerous. Officials warning residents to stay off the roads. Flood watches continue with more rain in the forecast.
I guess I'm not going that way.
Adding insult to injury in this deadly and already historic deluge. George Solis, NBC News.
Sticking with weather, let's take a look at your Monday forecast. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman has the latest on some surprisingly warm weather hitting parts of the country. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Great to see you. Yeah, it's summer-like across the country for most of us. We're looking at temperatures well above normal for this time of year, 10, 20, even 30 degrees above average, into the 70s and 80s. So shorts, sunglasses, definitely necessary today because lots of sunshine too across the country. Take a look at some of these numbers. Again, soaring into the upper 70s to low 80s in some spots. Notice Minneapolis, 82 degrees. That's 26 degrees above normal for this time of year. Salt Lake City, you're warm too, 70 degrees, 79 in Kansas City, 81 in Oklahoma City. Louisville, 76. We're looking at Philadelphia, 81 degrees. That's 16 degrees above normal. So a warm day today. We're going to be chasing October records. We'll do that once again tomorrow with temperatures looking a lot like they do today. Temperatures in the 70s, 80s, well above normal once again. Again, could break some records. 81 in Rochester. That's 24 degrees above normal. This is on Tuesday. Boston, 68 degrees, 81 in Baltimore. Same story as you head further to the west. We're looking at Sioux Falls, 77, 19 degrees above normal, and Milwaukee, 71. We're going to cool it back down as we head towards Thursday and Friday. Back to more October-like temperatures into the 60s in New York City on Thursday, right around 60 degrees on Friday. And notice the 50s on Friday in Boston. Omaha, you're going to be into the 70s later on this week by Thursday and Friday. That's the big weather story today. As you look towards the rest of the country, we're looking at plenty of sunshine for most of us. We do have the chance for some rain, some strong to severe storms in parts of Kansas and Nebraska. Seasonal highs throughout the southwest. And then notice the west. We have lots of green and blue showing up there. That's a pretty potent storm bringing some rain, some mountain snow there. And that's going to continue working its way east on Tuesday. By Wednesday, more sunshine across the country. I'd like to point out New Mexico. We're clearing out today, so we're going to be drying out there. That's going to be the story over the next several days as well. Still warm in the northern plains on Wednesday, above average highs also in New England, the Northeast. Sun and clouds throughout portions of the West. And then as we head towards Friday, still really quiet. This is good news. We're looking at a nice, quiet weather pattern as we go throughout this week. On the Northwest storm, though, another one on Friday, and really pleasant, the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. It was a nice weekend for many of us, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to see it again, at least in the Northeast. We'll have a really nice weekend once again.
Already looking at the next weekend is nice.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
I know we
The
need
best
rain,
news
though,
ever.
but it is good.
We do need rain,
Yes.
but we'll take it. All right. Michelle, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.